Today's a great interview because people ask me all the time, David, how can I afford someplace when where I live is so expensive? How am I ever going to buy? Well, this is the story of Chris and Niki, who were renting for $2,900 a month and found out their rent was about to go up to $3,800 a month. They figured out they needed to create a rent replacement strategy so they could put that big chunk of money to good use. There's a ton of great tips in here, including my favorite, that the perfect home doesn't exist. Buying a home is like making a jigsaw puzzle to get as many pieces as you can. So sit back and enjoy this real-life story of Chris and Niki, who were living someplace that seemed way too expensive to buy a home, yet here they are, homeowners. Let's do it.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to qualified vetted realtors in their area. Whether you're looking for DIY information or step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is the #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
All right, homies, another interview with a successful How to Buy a Homie story. I'm very excited about this one. Another one working with one of my favorite unicorns out there. I am so excited to talk to them, and I'm so grateful because Chris and Niki are sitting there with a brand new 3-month-old baby. So we'll get into that. But let's start with the process, like I always do. Give us your biggest takeaway, your biggest aha moment, your biggest tip for all the people out there.
Absolutely. So I'll share mine, and then Nick, if you have a different one, feel free to go ahead. But
cool.
I think for us, it was the realization that seeing a lot of homes in person really does make a very big difference. Because I think everybody kind of starts out the process having this perfect home in their mind, and they're going to go out there and they're going to find it. But as we know, at least for us, maybe some people, strike it a little bit differently, but the perfect home doesn't really exist. And there's a give and take with a lot of different features of a house. And so as you see more homes, you get a better idea of what you're willing to give on and maybe what you're wanting to prioritize a little bit more. And that really just kind of helped us narrow in on, okay, this house might not be perfect, but it has a lot of the things that are good enough and it works for us. And, let's pull the trigger on that and just go for it.
Yeah. Very cool. Did you have the same thing, Niki, or was there something else for you?
Just something else for me. I will say I definitely agree with that. And a piece of advice I would give is to just start going to open houses even before you start working with a realtor, because the more you see, the more it really does help in terms of finding out what you're willing and really want to put an offer in on. You're going to know when you want to put that offer in if you viewed a lot of houses. But I would say that my biggest aha moment, or just something that I didn't fully grasp ahead of time, is that during the negotiation process, it is okay to ask questions, and you should be asking questions, and lots of them. Go dig, get your answers. That's what your agent is there for, to talk to the seller's agent. And so really use the two of them to ask everything you can think of.
Specifically, do you mean within the offer, or it sounds to me like you're talking within the inspection period?
Both, actually. We'll talk about it more. I'm sure we were in a position where we were the only offer in on our house, so that meant that we had time, but we had tons of questions about the house itself, work that was done on it, as well as the inspection, the numbers, all things of that nature.
Okay. Well, we will get there. But before we do, thank you very much for the tips right away. One of the things I tell people is a house is like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yep.
And the puzzle is everything that you want. And it's the one with the least amount of pieces taken out.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
We need to get to the real thing, the reason I have you on the show today. It's time for a gotcha ambush. Chris, you reached out to me in July of 2022. You bought a home at the end of 2024. What the hell took you 2.5 years, bud?
That's a great question. I think I'm one of those people that I research a lot of things, and we kind of had like these very high level conversations. Oh, we've been renting for so many years. I think it's time to maybe start thinking about a home. But I was also very early on in the process. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I definitely put out some feelers. Obviously, you were the one that kind of got back to me, and it took a while to get there, but we definitely did get there. So I think it was me just kind of trying to orient myself and figure out what's going on in this world,
I love it. Well, I'm glad. Were there any other tools and resources you found along the way that helped you with the education and the learning? I know I'm not the only thing out there, and I don't care. I want everyone to figure it out the best way they can.
Well, I do got to give a shout out to Reddit. I think it's a very underutilized tool, and it's a very great way of kind of, crowdsourcing more organic opinions. And Reddit is really the real reason I discovered your podcast. And I'm a big podcaster. I like to learn through, auditory means or whatever it might be. So they kind of put me on the track towards you. And then I just started listening to all your episodes. And that really kind of was the primary resource that I use personally.
Okay, can I ask you guys, are you guys in your 20s or in your 30s? You look like you're 24.
I just turned 30 in 2024.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, did you say you're 28, Niki?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you guys have been renting for a little while. What was your rent when you started this process, when you were finding me in 2022 and when you guys were looking at other open houses? Where were you guys on the rental scale?
Yeah, for sure. So I think in 2022, were we still in New York or about to move out in New York?
Yeah, we were still in Manhattan, and we were very lucky when we were in Manhattan. We lived in the heart of it, and we were only paying, only in quotes, right? Because it's the heart of Manhattan. But we were paying $29 a month for a one bedroom in Manhattan because we were moving in right before the city was reopening post COVID. So we kind of had COVID apartment deals.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's summer when I'm recording this right now, and I'm getting ready to send my kid back to, he decided to go to school on the Upper East Side. Thanks.
Yep.
$2,900 for a one bedroom in Manhattan. Now, you people listening in other parts of the country, sorry.
Yes.
That's a steal.
It was a steal. But then to put it into perspective, we were in that apartment for 1 year.
Yep.
And then we got our lease renewal, and that exact same unit was going up to like $3,800 a month. So it was jumping 29 to 38. But thankfully, we had just found out we were not going to stay there. So we moved from Manhattan to Silver Spring, Maryland, moved into a beautiful 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment for $28 a month, I believe it was.
Yep.
Okay, so you stayed at $2,800 a month, but you did have that weird thing where you got a quality of life upgrade.
Yes.
Absolutely. More space, more rooms, and just about the same price. So,
did you guys move for work?
We did,
yes.
Cool. Okay, so you're sitting at $2,800 a month. COVID happens. 22, you start thinking about it. You guys closed on this house in November, and your baby's 3 months old. So I'm not super great at math. I really should be. This is kind of my job. What was it like going through the home buying process pregnant?
Yes, that was interesting, and it definitely made us want to speed things up. So also to give you some dates there. So it was July 2024, so a year ago now. But July 2024 is when we looked at each other seriously and said, we really want to actually start this home search, home buying process, because our lease was up this month, July 2025. So that was when I think Chris had reached out to you again, and you put us in contact with Kate. We started talking to Kate. I think we spoke with her for 1 or 2 weeks, and then we found out we were pregnant. And so we had actually told Kate that we would love to close on a home in spring of 25. We're like a month or two before our apartment lease is up would be fantastic. Maybe have a month overlap. So we told her we're not in a rush. We just want to start looking in case the right thing comes along. So she shows us a few houses, and then after a couple weeks, we were like, change of plans. Want to speed this up, and we actually want to close as soon as possible because we are expecting, and I was not interested in moving while I was in my 3rd trimester. So that really started to speed things up for us, and Kate was great about it. She said, okay, we'll start viewing more and we'll start getting serious about it. And then we ended up closing in November of 2024.
Okay, talk to me about the breaking of the lease, because to me, there is no wrong answer, because even if the answer is we had to pay an exorbitant amount of money, I can still do the math to show you that it's worth it. Yeah. But I do love to hear what happened with you guys.
Yeah. So that, I will say, worked out fairly well for us also because of just the timing of when we closed. So it was a little bit of a gamble when we were giving our apartment complex our 60-day notice. But when we did realize that everything with the house was likely going to work out unless there was a major curveball at the end, we decided to give our 60-day notice right before we were closing. So we essentially gave our 60-day notice at the start of November, which is also when we closed. So we had our apartment for November and December while also having the house. And for us, that worked out because our first mortgage payment wasn't due until January. So we never had a month where we had both mortgage and rent due, which was very helpful. We, of course, had to pay, I believe it was a 1-month fee to break our lease. So there was that cost. But again, having those 2 months where we had both spaces to move things in and only have the rent payment, we were able to save and pay to break without an issue.
You brought up two things that were really interesting to me. Number one, you do pay your mortgage backwards, and you do pay most of your first month's mortgage in your closing costs. I explained this in other podcasts. If you want to, go to the website and just ask me about it. But you usually, after you move in, get at least 4 or 5, sometimes 6 or 7 weeks where you don't have a mortgage payment. Thus, planning it with a crossover, it can be a huge thing for you. But answer me this. You said your lease was up in July of this year.
Yes.
You only got us to January, and you said you only had to pay 1 month. How did that work? Because you should have paid January to July.
Well, so that was actually how our apartment complex worked because we gave the 60-day notice. It was 60-day notice and the fee to break the lease. And their fee was, now that I'm thinking, I said 1 month, but I believe it was 2 months. So we gave our 60-day notice the end of October, start of November, paid our rent for November and December. On top of that, paid the 2-month fee to break the lease. And then mortgage started in January. So it was paying an additional 2 months of rent to break the lease. But again, January to July now was more than 2 months. So for us.
Yeah, you paid more. You timed it right, but you paid more, but you didn't have to move in your third trimester.
Yep.
And you moved in what I called the window of opportunity in my podcast last year, and you caught February, March, April appreciation, and your lease breaking payment is a distant mathematical memory when it comes to the equity that you have gained. Did you know all of that contractually before you got pregnant?
So it is something we looked into kind of after the fact, because as we said, the original plan was just to ride it out, and we really weren't going to about it. So after she got pregnant, we did look a little bit closer at the contract. We're like, oh crap, there's only a couple things that we realistically can do. We did go to the administrative office and try to negotiate a little bit. Unfortunately, they weren't willing to do a lot for us, just given the situation of everything. But, we took the penalty, and, funny enough, we kind of forgot about our security deposit. So when we got that back, it kind of was like, oh, that's nice. We did kind of sort of on, not real math, get 1 month back, even though it was owed to us anyway. But it all kind of worked out at the end.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. So learning lesson for people out there, even if one of your partners, I don't know, maybe you don't even have the ability to get pregnant, you might find the perfect house even though you tell your realtor we're not doing something in it for 8 months. So go ahead and do all that stuff ahead of time. Put that on the pre-planning checklist. Now, you talked about the open houses. Was that something you guys were doing on your own for years?
Not for years. Probably in the months leading up to getting introduced to Kate, we kind of started going to open houses. It's not really something we had done prior, and we were just kind of going casually on the weekend, just looking at not really optimizing for home prices, but home styles to try to get a
And
feel
location.
yeah, styles and location to get a feel of, what do we like and where are they located. So we weren't too focused on looking at houses within a specific price range. We were just trying to figure out like what is out there, what is the area like, and once we got introduced to Kate, though, we obviously ramped that up to 11.
Are you guys from the area
No,
that you live in now?
for work, and this was the first time we'd ever really been in the DC area, so this was all very new to us.
Yeah, we're both from New Jersey, born and raised. We're from the same town, actually. Family's all still there. So all we ever knew was New Jersey and then New York City for a bit of time. Chris had lived there longer than I did when we were there together. But yeah, so coming to Maryland, the DC area was completely new for us.
Okay, give us how does one go from if New York and New Jersey, if those of you guys who aren't East Coasters, it's a thing. That's not really like being someplace. It's kind of like, man, you can kind of call Manhattan like your college days, but give us the tips on, starting, you guys obviously starting a life. You were in Manhattan, 2 single people. Now you own a house, you have a dog and a baby. So you did adulting on fast forward.
Yeah.
Give us the tips on moving to a place that you don't know anything about. I mean, the DC area also knows the DMV. It's still a city, but it's not someplace What'd you guys do?
Yeah, so that definitely took a little bit of thinking, and we ultimately left Manhattan. So we had lived there married for a year together. And then I was offered a job. I am a federal employee. And so when I got that gig, I did have to come down here. And my office building is right in Silver Spring, Maryland. And so when we were moving, we're like, we don't know anything about this area. So how about we go live very close to my office building? Just so I'm there, I can walk to work. We still only need 1 car. Chris was working remote at the time, but that just seemed to make sense. We found a great apartment. We were right by public transportation to get into Washington, D.C. So those were the things we kind of looked for. It was how can we make my commute simple and also be near public transit to go in and enjoy D.C. and just explore the surrounding area when we want to. And so that was what we did. And I do think it worked out pretty well for us. I had a 5-minute walk to work, so didn't lose any time commuting there. As I said, Chris was working from home, and we were just in a good location to explore all of the other spots around us.
So as a young married couple, you got this lease that we were talking about, and it was a strategic decision for a job relocation as far as getting the lease so you could get to know the area.
Yes.
Yep. And I will say, just to add another point to that, so Silver Spring, Maryland, also, it's kind of a small city. Obviously, DC is its a city of its own. But with public transportation and it kind of being a small urbanized area, we were kind of familiar with that kind of environment coming from Manhattan, where things are more walkable. You have access to metro or the subway, and you can get to other places pretty quickly. So it was also, it had a familiarity to it as well that we really liked.
Yeah, it's not like you're going from, a farm in Kansas to the big city.
Right.
Wow. Okay. So you got to know the city, both on foot, on mass transit, and living there for a while. You, in the summertime, decided, let's go for it. That got ramped up quick. When you were talking about things going up to 11, what were some of the first big steps in the house hunt process that were things that you would want to tell other people? Oh, when you're house hunting, we did this and it worked great.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think getting connected with a realtor, Kate, is what really helped kind of solidify that process. And she offered fantastic guidance as to what those next steps were. We listened to your podcast a bunch of times, but going through the process for the first time, it's one thing to hear about it, it's another thing to do it. And so having that team to kind of support you and guide you and point you in the right direction really does make all the difference. I think for us, the two first big items that we really needed to figure out was trying to understand what type of house and what location we wanted, which is where that exploration component kind of came in and helped with, and then really narrowing down what our budget was. And that one, I think, was a little bit more intimidating at the start, but with the help of Kate and kind of her entire team that we worked with, that process pretty smooth.
Were you guys on the budgeting? Were you looking at different down payment options, or did you just have one? I'm getting a nod from Niki. Talk to me about that, because you guys had a good chunk, right?
We did. Yeah. No, we were very fortunate. And to put the numbers out there, we did have $300,000 set aside that we knew we're like, okay, this is what we have for a house, whether that is all down payment on perfect home that we don't need to do anything to, or less money down and money in the savings to do home projects and things of that nature that we would need to upgrade. And so I think that was a huge first step in this process, deciding how much money that was. And we eventually came to that 300,000 where it was like, okay, this is what we have. And we would be willing to use all of this if we need to, depending on the house. So yeah.
Did it end up that you used the chunk ultimately to get you the right new mortgage payment? You were at 29-28 for all those years. What's your PITI now?
So right now we're paying about $3,900 a month. And that definitely was kind of the equation we were trying to work out. How much more could we afford per month? And then how big of a down payment would we need to kind of get that monthly mortgage payment into the right region?
Could you afford the $1,000 more if you had put every cent into the down payment and closing costs?
Yes. Absolutely. We actually originally were looking at a home where our monthly payment would have been much larger. It would have required a lot less work on the home itself. And so it would have been a little bit more move-in ready. We kind of weighed whether or not that was a strategy that was going to work for us. In hindsight, which is 2020 with the baby, we're really glad we don't have that higher monthly payment. We were definitely evaluating kind of both sides of that spectrum.
Which is interesting because a lot of people might hear what you said and think, with a baby, I want it to be turnkey because I don't want to have to do any projects. But the projects you forget are as long as everything's livable, you don't have the baby expenses. That stuff is not something you can go, we're going to do in 3 months.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we had another ace up our sleeve too. So her father, my father-in-law, he was also a carpenter growing up, and he basically built their childhood home.
Yeah, we're very
wow.
My dad can do everything. He's absolutely incredible. He still lives in New Jersey, so he drives to Maryland a lot now to do a lot for us, but he has the grandson to visit, so it's all worth it.
I was going to say, normally you have to make sure that you make him his favorite dinner, but now you just, as soon as he walks in, here, look, baby.
Exactly.
Yep, exactly. But no, my father is extremely skilled and gifted, and I don't think I know we would not have gotten the home that we did if we didn't have him to help with all of the projects. So yeah, another piece of our equation that went into all this.
Chris, I have a love-hate relationship with Reddit.
Yep.
It's because someone's going to go, dude, why would you buy that when you have a baby and blah, 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 blah. You don't know about my dad. It's like not everything can be quantifiable into a spreadsheet, black and white. You always do this when you have that.
Right.
So how interesting. So you guys were in the fortunate situation, which is the goal of the podcast, is to help everybody get to their best options,
Yeah,
whatever it is. So you guys had multiple options. Did you end up putting all of it down, or did you keep some of it for renovations?
No,
So
we put half down.
Yeah, we put about half down, and then the other half we saved specifically for renovations. We've already gone through a good chunk of that doing some of the larger projects. And there's a lot of smaller projects that'll probably take us, a couple of years to get to. But as you said, that the home is livable. And so, we did the priorities and now we just are slowly checking things off as we can.
Okay, expand on this thought for me because I want people to hear it from someone else. You moved from Manhattan, so a $700,000 house. It wasn't the shock to the system that it might be to so many other people.
Right.
But explain this to me. You had $300,000, bought a house, your mortgage was going to go up from your rental price. What part of the math made it okay for you? Most people would go, put all of it down. Oh my God, you kept $150,000. Your mortgage must have been so much more expensive. So explain how you guys got to that.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is we knew we had projects that we wanted to do, that we needed to do, but also our home, which we are so happy and we love, it is a 1923 farmhouse. So it's old. And when you have an old house, you're going to uncover unexpected things. And again, I think because of the knowledge that we have from my dad, he was really able to hammer that home for us and say, we are going to find things. And he always says, he's like, it's nothing I can't fix for you, because it's not, but they are going to be added expenses or prolonged timelines. So in addition, going back to what we said was kind of step one, figuring out what our all-in is, what is set aside that we are able to spend on the home. Then what Chris was getting at earlier, kind of that next step in that was deciding where do we want that mortgage payment to be at. And so with Kate's help and our lender's help, we crunched those numbers based on how much we wanted to put down on this house to leave that chunk of money set aside for all of the projects and renovations.
And I will say, just to add one more point to that, also, I think, we are really fortunate in terms of our savings and our salaries. So, even though our monthly payment increased, it was a hit we were able to take. And, you say it a lot on your podcast, it's not like we're wasting the money. It's still a forced savings account. And so that money is being used for a really good purpose. And it's a 30-year mortgage. Since we can afford to take that $1,000 increase every month, we're still going to let inflation kind of eat away at that debt over time. And so we felt like that was a strategy that works for us, and we were okay accepting that higher payment.
From your lips to everyone's ear holes, letting inflation eat away at it is a more of a macro and higher level economic theory. So for those nerds out there who are listening to this podcast and go, I want to get into the deep stuff. And if you don't know, Google that, because the concept of owning a home at even a higher mortgage, I mean, like so many of these things, like I said, I'm so happy that the people are on Reddit talking to each other. And this is the reason why I did this. But so many people don't understand that every single decision that you make, people go and look at a house and go, and then they send me a message. David, should I buy this house? It's 1923. Okay, I need 2 hours because we need to talk about all your money. Do you have money for renovations? Do you have a dad? By the way, I interrupted you for a second because you said my dad hammered that idea home. That was funny. But it's everything. So if you tell me I've got 300, should I just put 20% down on the house, or should we put 30% down? The first thing I'm going to say is maybe I could generally say keep 10% and in the bank. And if in 90 days you don't want to, just do a principal and do a complete just recasting of your loan and you're fine. But like once you put it in, you can't recast your loan and pull the money out.
Right.
So at the very least, understand all these levels of finances. It's so great because I'll talk to some people and we'll be talking forever about, the home buying process as far as looking at neighborhoods and things like that. But you guys were so interesting to me because you had so many financial pieces to work with. While you were pregnant, Chris, make your wife dinner. She is a goddess.
I tried.
um, did you guys have 1923 in mind when you started, or was that? No, I got head shaking.
No.
So we both did love older homes, and we did have an interest in older homes, but we looked at everything. We were looking at homes that were going to be the tippy top of the budget. We would have had to put all 300K down. So we really did look at a lot of different options, and truth be told, this one was just right. We knew it when we saw it. We knew it when we were here. We were contemplating an offer on another house that was beautiful, bigger, had a lot more updates. I think it was listed for like 200K more than our home was. And it just wasn't right, but we could have moved into that with no projects other than painting. So yeah, we really looked across the board and just knew.
Chris, would you say your tip at the beginning, would you say that was the pieces of the puzzle that you had to take away on this one was just the renovations needed?
Absolutely. And just to add another point to it too, this specific home wasn't suggested by our realtor. It wasn't on her radar. So there were a lot of homes suggested by our realtor, but we also did our own research. And when we saw this one, I told Kate, like, hey, what do you think about this one? Is this worth going to see? And so there really was a kind of a team dynamic. She was helping us a lot, but we were also trying to help her as best as we could as well.
I get to the point now when people say to me, and I'm fine with it. I've been doing this 20 years and, people want to dismiss the value of a realtor. And I get it. I understand. But it is a partnership. And if you think my job is to spend all day, 8 hours a day finding your home, you don't understand what we really get paid for.
Yeah.
It's the planning, it's the team creation of a strategy, and then we all work together, and then it's securing the home, it's getting the home, it's getting the deal. So you guys came in, you said you were the only offer on this place?
Yes, we were. And to your point of it being a partnership, we could not have done this without Kate, because our negotiation process was a little crazy and there was a lot of back and forth, and we would have never known what our options were, what was allowed, what was acceptable, because we were never going to purchase this home at its list price, because the list price was a bit delusional.
Those are so much harder to negotiate.
Yes.
The ones that are way under, a lot of times the realtor and the seller, they have a plan. They're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get everybody to bid it up.
Yep.
The delusional people, whoo, Kate earned her money on that one then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talk to me about it. Spill the tea. How'd it go?
Yeah.
Did they laugh at your first offer or what?
No. So I think the other thing that really worked out for us is that the seller's agent, according to Kate, was also fantastic. And she knew as well that her sellers were a bit off the mark with what they wanted and were hoping for. But so this home was initially listed at $775, and it made no sense when you came and looked at the home. It was a beautiful home to begin with. They did do wonderful upgrades to it, but still a very old home with a lot of upgrades that were still needed. And then the most expensive comp in the area was $680-ish, I believe. And that home had been fully renovated, was bigger, so things were not lining up. So our first offer, and they had not received a single offer. So I think that kind of worked in our favor, actually, because the high price tag, I think, kept people away.
For how long? Do you remember how long it was on the market?
I think it was it was 30 to 60 days, I think.
40 days was in my head.
Yeah,
so
it was in the 60 range. And then we came in and we saw it and we were like, no, we really like it, but we are never going to offer this much money. So again, it was listed at $775 and our first offer was $675, $100K lower. And we thought it should have been a little bit lower than that, but we didn't want to make them balk and send us away. So then I don't know if you want to pick up where it went.
So they came back a couple of days later with a counter at 720, which, okay, now we're getting a little bit closer.
Yeah, I've seen people come back at 770.
Yeah, that's what we were afraid.
Yes.
So they were willing to play ball. Talking to Kate and talking to her father-in-law, we thought the true kind of worth of the home was maybe in that 660, 650 range. So at 675, we were still above what we thought it should be, but we really wanted the home. We liked the area. We were willing to pay a little bit above what we thought it was worth, but we didn't really want to go too much above that. So when they came back with 720 as a counter, we kind of proposed an interesting counter offer. And so we kind of said, we'll meet you in the middle at 697, but we want the right to renegotiate after the appraisal. Or it was a two-parter. So they could do that part of the offer, or we said, you can accept 675 and we will waive our right to renegotiate.
On appraisal.
On appraisal specifically. So
did you come up with that, or was that Kate?
That was me.
That
good one.
Chris, and Kate said she loved it.
Well, it's smart because you're telling them we didn't offer what was the first offer? 675?
Correct.
We didn't offer 675 because we're some crazy lowballers trying to get $100,000 off your house. We offer 675 because we truly believe in the comps.
Yes.
So then you come up with that idea. Then Kate has to present the offer with all the comparable sales, showing that and creating that relationship with a realtor like you're talking about, because the realtor is ultimately going to be the one that turns around and presents it to them.
Right.
But by creating that 675, we'll take it. Like if you really think, because we think it might even appraise less than that.
Yes.
Right.
That is a sophisticated negotiation. And also the idea of the right, technically the right to negotiate after an appraisal. It's technically part of every transaction, but putting it in writing at the top is a really great way to solidify that. Because when the appraisal comes in, there are three things. Seller tells you pound sand. I don't care if the appraisal is 20,000 under. You have to make up the other 20. Buyer says, I'm out. Or they come together and meet somewhere in the middle. So she took the 697, or he or whoever the seller was?
Yeah, so the couple decided they would work with us at the 697 with the right for us to renegotiate at the appraisal. But the funny thing is, we got the inspection done before the appraisal came back. And the inspection had multitude of concerns. And we expected.
We fully expected.
Yeah.
1923, plus you guys had a rough idea of the condition.
Right.
Yes. And we had my dad present for the inspection as well. And he and Kate's inspector hit it off, and they looked at everything in a lot of detail. So again, also very fortunate in that regard. Where
I need to meet your dad. It's a joke in the realtor world that dads kill deals at inspections.
Yeah.
So not only is he willing and driving to Maryland, but he's an open-minded individual who sees the value. So what happened after the inspection when the appraisal came in?
Yeah, so this was kind of the best part. The inspection came back. Kate took it. She went to the seller, and she's the seller's agent, and was like, this is one of the worst inspections I've seen. But they want this house because they know everything they need to do to fix it up. And the seller's agent took a look at it and said, yeah, I'll talk to my sellers about that 675 again. And when they saw that inspection report, I think they were worried because, again, no offers had come to the table at this point.
Yeah.
this was why we had the time to do all these things. We were the only one they were in discussions with. So we had that up our sleeve as well. But yeah, they looked at the inspection report, and I think that they were just worried, whether they were worried about the appraisal or us walking. They said, okay, we'll do 675. And we got back to our initial offer, which again was $100K below the listing.
Okay. So what's amazing about that is that there's a situation that, again, you mathematically had to decide, do we want a $20,000 credit but you guys had the luxury to have the cash. So you had the options, so you could just take the price.
Right.
Yep.
That's incredible. Wow. What a story. And I will caveat to everyone out there. No, that does not mean you can go offer $100,000 on less than the home that you want, because Chris and Niki did it and David approves them. No. It's because they had the right team to let them know that this was $100,000 over the last comp, and the last comp was even fixed up.
Yes.
And Kate even said this is the first time she ever renegotiated based on an inspection report. So
yeah, so this was a first for Kate as well, because we didn't even have to wait to get to that appraisal.
Yeah.
The appraisal came back. It was 680, I believe. But that was another interesting thing that I learned in this process, that appraisals and things, appraisers don't look at inspection reports. It really is just based on comps and the lot that we have. Our yard is one of the biggest yards in the whole neighborhood. And so we know when you're appraising, that is going to push the value up. But I was just making jokes, because if an appraiser actually did get to see this inspection report, there's no way it would ever be appraised at 680. So that was another thing that I learned throughout this process as well, that yes, the appraisal does matter. It matters a lot, but there's a lot more going on under the surface that isn't always showcased in that value.
There's so many different layers to an appraisal, and an appraisal is one of the reasons why it's nice that the appraiser doesn't do that is when you're looking at refinance later down the line. If you put the lipstick on the pig and you do all the cosmetics and take the pictures, your value will increase.
Right.
So, but this is why, when you're selling your home, your listing agent is going to talk to you a lot about, like, hey, you might appraise for this, but just be ready. The buyer's going to do an inspection. So you'll appraise up to here. We can get up to, $750 for this home, but you're going to have to pay $25,000 to them when they look at the foundation. Or, so it's so there's so many different pieces of the puzzle that come into it. And you guys are smart and savvy people, but you have to go through it with the team to figure out all the pieces. You weren't in your third trimester, but you were pretty close during the moving. How did that go? Second trimester?
Yeah, I was second trimester at that point.
Okay.
So again, we closed in early November, and we officially moved right before Christmas. So it was a busy holiday season, but it was nice because we had that month and a half where we did a few small projects and started getting little things over that we didn't need. And then the big move happened mid-December. So it happened. We did it, even though I was pretty pregnant at that point.
Did you have your holiday decorations and Christmas boxes all and then also move-in boxes all in the same area?
We did, yes. And we did, even though it wasn't up for a very long time, we did put the Christmas tree up for a little bit as soon. So there was nothing else there except our Christmas tree for a little period.
I hope you took pictures of your pregnant self in front of your tree with nothing else.
Yep, we do have some.
That's awesome. So much educational stuff here. Is there, I know we could talk for another hour. Is there anything else you're like, oh my God, I need to tell David this?
I don't think so. I feel like we hit all the major points, but I guess
nice.
One point I want to reiterate to all the viewers or listeners is just get a unicorn team. Talk to them and figure out your options, because they do make all the difference. We like to think we're somewhat intelligent and kind of know what we're doing, but
occasionally
there's so much information to parse through. We needed a team to get the deal done that we got, and we wouldn't have been able to have this successful outcome without them. So get a unicorn team, rely on them, ask questions. They will point you in the right direction.
I think the moral of the story with a smart couple like you, who also not only is smart, but has some financial means, you could have done this on your own. You could have gone and hired an agent off of Zillow, or just talked to a person, walked into an open house and talked to that agent and said, I want to buy this house. You would have had the financial means. They would have found a way for you to do it. And I guarantee you, 5 years from now, if we looked at on paper what you did with support versus what you could have done. So that's why it's so difficult for me to scream from the mountaintops exactly what you said. And I'm so glad you said it, because what the team did is they took you and they elevated you with the upper level areas of techniques and tips and tricks. And the cool thing is we love it, because in the partnership, we get stuff from you and you get stuff from us. And, you guys brought stuff to the table, but I'm glad that you said that, because when someone comes in with options, it's like moldable clay on the ceramics table. Well, I can't think of a better image to close the podcast. Chris and Niki found their beautiful 1923 home and went through all these hoops. And here we are a few months later, and the dog is sunbathing in the window. Thanks so much for your time, guys.
Oh, thank you, Dave. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Got to give a huge thanks to Chris and Niki for coming on the show and sharing all those incredible tips, techniques, and tools that you guys can use to buy a home, even if you're living in an expensive area. And if you're looking for all the best tips to help you make your rent replacement strategy, go back and listen to episode 350 on the last lease ever. It's a designed program for the planners, not the folks getting ready to buy a house right now, but for the people who need the planning steps 3 months, 6 months, even a year ahead of time. And if you're close and you're looking for the up-to-the-minute data, go back and listen to the 3-part series on the big changes and advantages for first-time homebuyers happening at the end of 2025. That's episodes 382, 83, and 84. And remember, gang, you can do it.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuyaHome.com to get started.